1998, Sergey and Larry first had gotten funded, and they were living in the dorms at Stanford, and they were looking for office space. And at that time, there were a lot of .com companies that were looking for office space because everybody was starting a .com, and office space was hard to come by. And at the same time, I had purchased this house and was living here and worried about covering the mortgage because I had just gotten my MBA, and I had bought the house with the agreement with my husband that we would rent part of it out. I didn't really realize I'd be renting it out to a company like Google. But I did know Sergey and Larry, and I knew they were looking for office space, so we came up with a deal that we would rent this part of the house to them, including the garage and some of the rooms in the house. And the house and the garage looked really similar to how it was when they worked in it 15 years ago. I was actually asked this morning, like, did we put this carpet in for the event? And I said, no, this carpet was here. I actually put it in as a perk for them. To get them to try to move into the garage. And so most things in the house are original. This is how it looked. We haven't changed it very much. So, they moved in and then got to work, started building their company. And at the time, I didn't really know what to think about this. I mean, you have a few graduate students working in your house. They had one employee. They got up to 7 employees actually in the house, and at that point I think we both agreed it was probably time to find new office space. And but you know, what do you think when you have a few guys working in your house and garage and say that they're building the next generation search and that it's going to compete with all the companies that were worth billions of dollars that were well established at the time? And so I really didn't think very much about it, reality. But then I started using Google, and before I knew it, all of my searches were on Google. And I didn't really realize that until one moment when I was at work, and I couldn't actually get the service to work because it was down. Now, you have to remember that at this point, Google was running on servers at Stanford, and sometimes it went down. And so it was in that moment that I realized I can't get my work done because I can't search on Google. And I realized how important Google had become to me. It had become essential to finding information, and I realized it would become important to the world going forward. And that's when I really realized the power of Google, and I realized that I want to be part of Google. And I joined a few months later. I still had to interview, go through the whole interview process, even though I was the landlord. And I did not actually work with them ever when they were in the house, because that would have been a really convenient commute. But unfortunately, I was not able to make that happen. So I did join them in their next office. A lot of things have changed in 15 years. Our world is completely different. At the time that they were here, we all had Palm Pilots, just to put that in perspective. And they were working here. And if you compare this to our offices down the street, you can see how much has changed for Google between this house and our offices down 101 in Mountain View. But a lot of things are the same. And I want to talk about 3 things that are the same. 3 things that were here when Google was here that we still have and are so crucial and important to our culture. And so the first one is our commitment to building great search experiences for our users. And that was something here when we had just a few employees, and Sergey and Larry, that was a focus for the company, to build really great, amazing search experiences for our users to help them find information. And I remember there was, users would write to us, and like at the time, like we would actually all personally get the emails because they would come into our personal accounts. And there was this one person who had written to us, and they had told us about how they were having symptoms of a heart attack. And but they weren't really sure if they were or they weren't. And so they looked it up on Google, and we were able to deliver them information really quickly. They realized they were having a heart attack, and were able to get medical help. And that was an example that we talked about internally as a reason as to why it was so important that our information was accurate, that we could give them the information as quickly as possible, because we knew people were dependent upon the information that we were having. So that was something that was here early on that is so essential to our culture, and Ami will be talking about that more and how we're moving that forward. The second thing that was really, really important and baked in the culture, even when we were so small here, was to be a global company. And if you go back into the back room here, where actually they did a lot of their initial work, they had a whiteboard, and the whiteboard said, Google's worldwide headquarters. And you know, it's kind of funny now when you think about that, given where we are. We have 70 offices in 40 different countries, and to think that this little room was their worldwide headquarters. But the reality is, because of the internet, and because the internet is so powerful, it can offer so much amazing distribution, they actually did have worldwide users, even when they were really small. And they were already focused on how can we make sure that we're serving people, not just here, but people all over the world, to deliver them great information. Now, I also had a story. When I joined, I was Google's first marketing manager, and I was supposed to market Google. I had no budget, and I had just graduated from my MBA, so I really did not have that much experience either. But I had learned in my MBA that when you market, you choose a specific target audience, and you market to that audience. And so I got here to Google, and I said, well, you know, who's our target audience? Who are we going to market to? And they said, everybody. And I said, well, I didn't learn how to do that in my MBA. And so I know we had to adjust our strategy, but it was, they were right. Like, we really did want to serve everybody. And so very early on, the goal was to market, it was to provide a service that would work globally. And the third thing that was here when we were a small, little, tiny company was to focus on thinking big. And since I knew the founders early when they were here, they were thinking big. They were thinking when they were in this house, how can they build a great service that will be used by people all over the globe? And so they were thinking big, it's just that not as many people were listening. And if you look at what we're doing today, we're still thinking about how can we do things, how can we use technology to make changes that will change people's lives. We look at projects like Glass and Loom to offer access, or driverless cars. And those are all projects that they have the opportunity to really change all of our lives. So even though a lot of things are different with Google, the core is really the same. I'm really proud to be part of a company that has been able to focus on things that will make a difference in people's lives. And when we think about search, when we think about the opportunity, we think about having 100 years to be able to really get to the most amazing search opportunity. So we're 15 years in, that means we have a lot of work left to do. And so Amit Singhal is going to come up and talk to us a little bit about the evolution of search and talk about some new steps going forward and where we're going. So please welcome Amit Singhal.